Okay guys, so currently I am standing on Hestehagen and gonna play again with Bjarte. He's currently in the lead 2-1 on courses, so let's see if we can take one down. Okay guys, so we are back and today we are at Hestehagen. Now our first match was at Krokol where I took down the win, but we also play matches off camera just for fun. And because of those, he is in the lead 2-1. So it's time for me to step up and take a W. Now today's course is Hestehagen, and I don't know this course at all. Bjarte has played it before, so it definitely has an advantage, but I'm not gonna let that stop me and gonna try to go for the win. Now for that putt, I went very aggressive. I had a decent chance and a decent look at the basket, but a bit too far and couldn't connect, and that is just tragic. As Bjarte can just clean up a super easy par, I end up taking a stupid double bogey. Now, I know I should have just laid it up for par, but that's not fun. Gotta run it. Hole 2, you need to go dead straight quite far before hooking it left. Bjarte with a very nice looking drive just kicked in the last possible tree. Here I slip so hard on the tee pad. Luckily it didn't fall over, but grip locked it. And for a grip lock, I was honestly quite fine with it. But I had a lot of work left to do, and honestly, played a decent upshot. I'm not that good with standstill backhand, and especially not when I'm in the woods like I was. But I did manage a good recovery. Fortunately, the putt was just too awkward with the tree right in front. So I take another bogey, sadly, as Bjarte cleans up yet another par. For someone who needed to win today, this was not the start I was hoping for. Hole 3, kind of short, just need to pick your gap. Bjarte advised me to go for the right gap, so of course I follow, I listen to his advice, and if I just had a tiny bit more overstable mid, it would have probably landed in a great spot. And this little river here is just casual water, so he could take relief and catch his birdie, whilst I still need to work for just a par. 3 holes in and he's already got a 4-stroke lead. So as we go on to hole 4, he says that he's just gonna take the par, just playing it safe because he hasn't been able to reach the basket in one. I am already far behind, so I decided, hey, let's go for a semi-safe aggressive line. And I actually hit my line rather good, just a bit short, but it should leave me a long putt if nothing else. Bjarte just beautiful approach game there. And here I technically speaking have a chance to make up a stroke, but it's a bit too far of a putt. So I think I just have to settle with a par, which thankfully I'm actually able to make the putt. Hole 5, this nice little island hole. Honestly, I really like this hole. It shapes up for a nice little forehand flex. I am not good with forehand, as you can clearly see. But just because none of us made the island does not mean it's bad. It is a really cool hole. Just a bit sad that the drop zone is so far away, so it's not really realistic trying to run it. But if nothing else, it at least makes it a very easy bogey to get. Now I for some reason decided, hey, I want a much longer putt than needed, just to show off my putting skills. And it barely goes in. But if nothing else, at least I don't lose any strokes here. Now over to hole 6, which is one of the most infamous holes on this course. You want to just pure this gap, get it far up there, stay away from the right side OB. I mean, it looks simple on paper, but this hole is tricky. Neither of us get good drives, but at least mine is up into the fairway. Bjarte now on his 3rd throw and goes too overstable and right into OB to the right. Trust me when I say this hole eats your score up. Here I decide for some reason to go a little bit aggressive with a flippy mid, trying to push the right side. Unfortunately, I didn't give it enough power, so I'm in the woods. Definitely not where I want to be, but this was really not Bjarte's hole, so I still have a couple of strokes to work with, as Bjarte gets a pretty clean shot right here. Just getting through everything and leaving himself a long putt. I go for a very aggressive patent pending with the splice, just trying to get it through and push to the left, which I need to do one more time, but this time I got a bit more unfortunate and of course it kicks OB. Now there's nothing left to do, just clean up, move on from this disaster, and yeah, none of us were having a good time at this point. But we managed to clean up, if you can even call it that at this point, because this was just disastrous. Bjarte takes a +4 as I take a +3. Yikes. Moving on to hole 7. Here you want to hit this left gap there, which of course I don't. I decide to go for the right, get 2 lucky kicks, and end up in a position where I have something at least. Bjarte also learning from me and wanting to go for the right gap, which is absolutely nothing. But hey, at least he had something and did a pretty good job of recovering, getting all the way to the basket. And here I have this extremely uncomfortable shot. The tree was right in my face, so I had no power. So with that in mind, I was extremely happy with the shot, but just a bit too long to actually make the putt. Real unfortunate, because Bjarte can extend his lead again. But luckily for me, hits the band, misses the putt, and we both need to just settle for the bogey here. But the best thing to do right now is just try to move on, which is very difficult for me because I am very much a flow player. When I'm playing good, I continue to play good. When I'm playing bad, I really struggle to get any sort of recovering. And one other thing I just have to mention is that these prodigy baskets, they are living rent-free in my head. I am so scared of them. Reason obviously being is the whole Isaac Robinson incidents, and just the fact that I've experienced a lot of chain outs on these baskets. So mentally throughout this round, I am struggling. But we keep going, trying to catch up, and Bjarte is getting a lot of unfortunate kicks and not playing his best game. I have played a bit with this guy, and he is much better than you can see on these 2 videos we've played. And one of his biggest strengths, in my opinion, is his mental game, as he doesn't seem affected at all by playing a bad hole. I don't know how he does it, but creds to you, man. Moving on to hole number 9. Tee shot, you're just trying to get something out there and pushing it to the right. Either a forehand or a understable whatever. I went with my Hades, which is my second most understable distance driver, and I threw it a bit too much heiser. Bjarte, honestly quite short, but at least he was safe from the OB, and playing it pretty clean. I had barely gotten past the OB lines, but not in the best spots, as you can see. Coming up to the 3rd shot, and throwing a okay forehand. This hole for me has just been Scramble City all the way, but as soon as we're in the fairway, we can hit a beautiful approach to save our bogey. Bjarte playing much more clean than me. Like I said, this guy is pretty good, but got a little bit of a grip lock there. Really unfortunate, and needs to approach with his 4th shot as well. But I do have to bully him a bit for that. The way this hole was played was so vastly different, and one would believe that Bjarte actually gained a stroke on me here, but surprisingly enough, we played that at a bogey, both of us. But nonetheless, moving on to hole number 10, an overstable forehand out of the gap, trying to get a bit more distance than I got there to get to the right clearing around where Bjarte's disc is landing now. Unfortunately, none of us got a clean drive. Here I just need approach with my splice. Got a really lucky kick because that was headed right into the woods a bit too early. Again, I am really not playing well today. Bjarte has a super clean approach there. Can't really say anything about it. Here I have a forehand into the basket, which I do honestly prefer. Just left it a bit too short, but it should not be a problem, in theory at least, and not in practice either. We both leave with a par as we move on to hole 11. Now, hole 11, you have a pretty big gap on the left side and OB on the right side, so it shouldn't really be that difficult of a hole. Bjarte, unfortunately hits the trees on the right. I don't, and I go OB to the right, but luckily I at least got enough distance, and I have a much easier approach. As you can see, Bjarte was in the woods, didn't really have much of an opening, couldn't really get all the distance. I felt pretty confident, decided to run the basket. Not the best run, but it was something. And we basically ended up on the same spot. So it is just tapping it in for our fours, and I really wished I didn't get the OB, as that would have saved me a stroke. But no time to dwell on that. Let's move on to hole number 12. In par 4, we just need to get it out there into the middle of the fairway, hopefully. Give yourself a relatively easy approach. Both of us hitting the gap perfectly, but both of us also ending up fading a bit too far to the left into the woods and not having much of an approach. And I just get incredibly lucky there. As you can see, realizing that was not skill, that was pure luck. And Bjarte gets the opposite end of the stick, directly into the tree, drops straight down. And just nails the approach directly after. Like I said, this man does not get affected by his previous shots. My long putt for birdie, good attempt, but unfortunately it's just going to be a par for both of us. And I am still 4 strokes behind, just like in the beginning of the video. I really need to pump the gas, and this is the hole to do it. Just a perfect dead straight shot with my T-Rex, having it fade towards the end. Couldn't really ask for much of a better hole than this at this time. And if that was not enough, Bjarte has this putt, which is very tricky with all the trees. And he mentioned that he couldn't even see that tree when he was lining up his putt because of his focus. So, standing in the middle of the water, cashes in, is par save. And here I can finally gain a stroke if I can just sink a putt. And I nail it. Now this felt really good, having the T-pad. And I just wanted to include this little shot here, as I actually managed to stop myself from throwing when I felt that something was off. But moving on to hole 14, and this looked like another perfect shot for my T-Rex out through the right gap there, and just having it finish right towards the basket. And once again, hit it perfectly. There is a reason I really love the T-Rex, and why I want to say it has become my favorite disc in my bag. Because it ends up leaving you with putts like this one coming up. I mean, it is a difficult hole, and I absolutely parked it for birdie. So yeah, if you have never heard about the T-Rex, that is completely understandable, but I do recommend checking it out, as I love it. Absolutely fantastic disc, and I cannot stop gossiping about it. But we move on to hole 15, the only par 5 on this entire course, and it is 285 meters long. First, you just need to get past everything on the right side there, which I managed to do. Bjarte was not as fortunate. So with that, he did still have a lot of work left. I got a good shot, but unfortunately it skipped again a bit too far left off the fairway, and my second shot I couldn't get to flatten out enough. So I do end up leaving myself a bit short of the ideal position. Going with the forehand, again, not my strongest suit, and I also picked the wrong disc. T-Rex was not the shot. I needed a way more overstable disc, as Bjarte is cleaning up pretty nicely. And what I have right here is basically just summing up my entire round today. It is just Scramble City, but I feel like that's this course in general. Yep. There is so much thick woods lines, but regardless of how awful I am playing, and honestly, Bjarte as well, this is not the level I know he can play at. But regardless of all of that, we are still having a blast. It is so much fun trying out this course, as we just try to scramble our way towards the basket and trying to finish strong. And I also must mention, at this point my camera was dying, so we decided not to film our tap-ins to try to save some battery, but in the end we just ended up switching out for Bjarte's phone. On to hole 16, which is an insane 135 meters par 3. neither of us are like big throwers. I think both of us are like on our max 130 meters, and that is just ripping it without directional control. I remember him saying he was around that distance, and personally I know my longest shot ever is 132, at least on flat ground. So 135 par 3 with tight woods, that ain't happening. So both of us just trying to get a par, which we couldn't really do, so we tried to scramble for a bogey, if nothing else. Here I'm just trying to putt, get it towards the basket, not in, don't really have a shot for that. Bjarte having quite a lot of work left for his bogey, and just low off the cage. Gain a stroke, and now only 2 strokes behind. As we move on to the second to last hole, hole 17, I shoot it directly into the woods. Absolute worst case scenario. And Bjarte at least gets some distance before his also just fades so far into the woods. And this here was just devastating as I go from side to side. So many shots. Bjarte as well not having the biggest of luck getting through, but also just onto the other side of the fairway, and we just keep on scrambling back and forth. This was just a rough time. Now I'm not gonna go blame anything, we were just playing poorly, but I must also say the discs were wet, the ground was wet, we were wet, and we had already played another course off camera before we played here, so it was definitely not the most optimal way of playing, or rather the most optimal conditions for playing, I should say. But we keep on throwing, trying to get the basket, trying to finish out this round, as we both end up getting finally 2 really good approaches. And of course he managed to capture it on film when I slipped there, right before I just make this amazing putt right into the tree. This was absolutely worst case scenario. I was already behind, did not need to lose even more strokes, so had to go for the basket. Pretty happy with deciding to actually run it that hard, but it also gave me a long comebacker. Bjarte way more accurate with his putt, and that right there was just devastating, as I knew I had spent 4 strokes putting. So with heavy heart, knowing I'm 4 back, 1 hole to play, yeah, it was over. So as we are just finishing out this final hole, I just want to say thank you guys for watching if you are still here. Go check out Hestehagen if you have the option to. It is such a fun course, especially if you do like wooded courses. I personally love them. I just did not show it today. It was just a awful round on my end. Played horribly. But the course in itself is beautiful and it's super good. So go check it out as we just finish up the final hole. And I just need to mention that Bjarte is actually running this one as he has nothing to lose. But with all of that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. There should only be this and one more video that has this bad of audio quality. So I hope you enjoyed. Bjarte is now up 3-1. I really need to win soon. And as always, I will see you guys hopefully next week.